Yo, what is going on, guys? Wait, one second. No, that's not my line. No. Am I missing somebody? Yeah, I forgot to tell you guys, Gabe Starks is no longer with us. Just kidding. Just kidding. So Gabe and I've actually been talking about this for a while. And at first, I wasn't sure how I thought about doing a solo episode. But after watching this podcast, I can't remember the name of this podcast, but after watching this podcast where they switch out the hosts every other episode, I thought, maybe this is kind of a cool idea. So we kind of decided that because of our crazy work schedules, how hard it is to line it up, we're going to kind of get a feeler out for just kind of a solo episode. So currently I am sitting in Founders Hall at Northwestern Michigan College here in Traverse City, Michigan. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of do a solo episode. And just because it's been over 70 days, probably hitting 80 now, as far as our last upload, I'll give a little update. But yeah, for today, it's just me. So I think it'll be interesting. Let me know what you guys think. I also wrote some notes on my MacBook. I basically scripted, but I'm going to try to not use just the script. So we'll see how it goes. Took me a long time to write it too, because I wanted to make sure it was, entertaining. But as many of you know, I've been in aviation for almost the full academic year of 2022 and 23, and it has been just amazing. My aeronautical knowledge is so much more advanced than the last time we hopped on this podcast. I'm actually getting really close to my check ride. So as of Monday, I'm doing a mock check ride. And then once I pass that, I will be taking my check ride, which means I will be a United States private pilot. So I am super pumped for that. I cannot wait. So let me just kind of fill everyone in, because even though we haven't uploaded in a while, the podcast is not something that I've just kind of pushed to the side. It's something I've thought about every day since we've recorded our last episode. There's nothing that beat just sitting down with Gabe, having a crazy awesome topic that we both really wanted to talk about, and just hopping on and uploading the episode. But I think this will kind of bring its own strengths and uniqueness. I think as we kind of get the ball rolling again, we're going to try and get some more guests on. I already have a couple invites out, and so I think that would be really cool. And of course, if Gabe can ever make it here, or if I can make it to Gaylord, we're not saying goodbye forever to the multi-episodes, but I don't know. So to fill you guys in, I have 3 jobs on campus right now, and I'm a full-time student. And so me getting off campus is very difficult. And Gabe is, he's only an hour and 20 minutes away, but he's been working at Verizon and real estate. And both of those have been picking up a lot for him. This dude literally works more than he breathes. Okay, maybe not literally, but he works a lot. And so it's just been really difficult finding times in my schedule that aligns with his. And I'm sure you guys know how that goes sometimes. So we're going to kind of try out the solo formats and kind of go back and forth and make our own episodes and see how it goes. So the other thing with our early episodes of this season is they kind of felt like fast food episodes. So what I mean by that is we would have such a hard time getting time simply to sit down and record, that the research kind of got watered down a little bit. We started covering topics that either we just relied on our past knowledge on, or that, we'd get some help from a couple articles and call it good. And I just, as content creator, it's really difficult. I'd rather not produce than produce kind of sloppily. And I'm not saying that those episodes weren't good. I enjoy those episodes, but not as much as when it's more structured and there's more time and energy that's able to put into the podcast. And also NMC has this little podcast room, and I'm working on the camera angles and stuff, but for now this will do. But I'm really excited to use some of this technology. One thing Gabe and I wanted to get was a roadcaster, and now I have one right here. I know you guys can't see it, but it's awesome. And then also, I have my MacBook set up right here, and then we have this really nice microphone, cool headset. So it's a pretty cool setup. But yeah, so I also kind of wanted to talk about the danger of trying to reach a huge monumental goal. One thing that's really difficult is it's easy to kind of get sidetracked, right? So our biggest mission has always been to help people kind of see life in a more positive light. And personally, and I'm not speaking for Gabe, I don't know if Gabe has ever felt this, but I got obsessed with watching that subscriber count just go up every week. And it kind of felt like it was for the wrong reason. So I really needed to take a step back and reanalyze kind of what I'm doing here.
And that kind of brings me over to our Instagram. So we're on Instagram. It's just Positive Outlook Podcast, all one word. And the amount of interaction and love we've gotten on that platform is just amazing. And this isn't to cut out all the people that have reached out to us through our other platforms, but Instagram's a lot more personable. When you reach out through DMs, only you and me or Gabe see them. And usually it's me. I'm usually the one that goes through our DMs. When you guys DM us, there's probably an 80% chance that it's me responding, but not always. But yeah, so during the hiatus, since our last episode, I was always going through those DMs and looking at messages and comments and asking where we are. And it kind of reminded me that, the podcast is something bigger than just the numbers. And it always has been, but it was a good reminder hearing from people, asking when our next episode is going to drop. And it really motivated me to kind of pick up where we left off, and continue down this sort of journey, if you will. And it's been amazing. I've been busy, so but I'm glad to be back. It feels really good. It's really weird that it's just me, and I had a hard time trying to lay out this episode so it was as entertaining as possible. So yeah, you guys will have to give feedback, leave reviews or comments depending on the platform, and let me know if there's certain things you like, certain things you don't like. I'll just kind of sidestep real quick. I'm planning on kind of having a segment where maybe people call in, because the roadcaster can handle that. So that is a potential, but yeah. So on Instagram, I posted on our story, ask us some tough questions and we'll answer it in the next episode. So we got 3 questions, 3 good ones, and I personally feel that now that I've been in college long enough and done an annoying amount of research, I think that I'm a little better at it, so I think that'll help a little bit. But yeah, I was just really excited to directly get those questions, and we do have some requested topics, and we'll get to those episodes, I promise. But for now, I thought this would be kind of an easy way to segue into the second season of Positive Outlook. We kind of took a season break, but this is still season 2. Yeah, so let's start with the first question. So question 1 was letting go or how to let go of something. So this question is from Jake Leopardi. I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. You'll have to correct me, but the Instagram is Jake Leopardi17. So it's Jake, JakeLeopardi17. So Jake also stated in this question that he wasn't sure if we had an episode on letting go. We do. The episode is Let Go to Let Grow, Season 2, Episode 7. That was from earlier in the summer of 22, I believe. And it was a live stream. It can be found on our YouTube. And I might be putting my personal editing to the test here, but you should be able to click, if you're on YouTube, on that episode in video somewhere on the screen. And I'll put it in the description on our other platforms. But yeah, so I really wanted to answer this question anyways. I think it's one of the most prevalent things as humans is learning when to let go of something. I think it's insanely important. So, yeah, why not throw it in this episode? So, um, it's really difficult to know what kind of things you should let go, right? I mean, we have information coming in at unprecedented speeds. You know, you learn something new, and then 3 weeks later, they discovered that that was actually wrong, or just so much information and right at our fingertips. You know, we have phones, computers, public libraries have access to these things as well. So it is a difficult question. How do you know when to let go of something? And the easiest way to break this down is starting with a super simple question. Is this helping me or hurting me? If I remember correctly, one of my lines from the Let Go episode was make it dramatic. I stand by this, absolutely. When you have something that you must consider letting go of, whether it is a person, a place, a thing, or just absolutely anything, um, for that matter, run a theoretical simulation. If you ate or did something or spent time around that person for 24 hours for the next 50 years, would you be better or worse for it? The truth is, most of the time, it's quite remarkable the impact of letting go of certain things can have. If you let go of the average American screen time per year, you would be able to climb Mount Everest and circumnavigate the world multiple times. It's crazy, but the answer to this question is generally pretty vague based on the nature of the question. It's not very specific, but it can be applied to absolutely anything. And I think that's why I love this sort of compound effect, I believe it's called. And we've talked about the compound effect, but I think that is an amazing way to figure out if something is good for you or bad for you. So, anyways, what is the next step, right? Let's say you have something that you've decided is not good for you. Okay, what do you do about that? How do you let go of that? My answer to this is actually kind of the opposite of making it dramatic. This time, I recommend making it very subtle, very subtle. One thing that I recently desperately needed to change and let go of was my dysfunctional sleep schedule. I had a hard time staying awake for classes and keeping energy and motivation to make it through a workout and homework and lots of studying. It just wasn't there. I mean, I was running on empty because of my sleep schedule, and I made it very dramatic problem. You know, I pictured myself falling asleep behind the wheel of the plane. Like, not amazing. So I kind of scared myself out of like, okay, we need to stop this and we need to kind of turn things around. And so what I did, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, this is 100% anecdotal. There are recommended amounts to change your sleep schedule, but I focused on getting to bed just 20 minutes earlier than my usual bedtime for the first week. It wasn't a dramatic change. I still had time to relax or get ready for bed or whatever it was that was keeping me up so late. I had time to do that, but I mentally knew that I was going to bed a little earlier. And I did this for multiple weeks. I'd do it, okay, 10 minutes earlier, 20 minutes earlier, just little tiny baby increments. And some days it wasn't always perfect, right? But that's just kind of how it goes. Now, what was crazy to me was within a singular month, I was going to bed 3 to 4 hours earlier and waking up 4 to 5 hours earlier without an alarm. And I throw in without an alarm because obviously for class and work, you got to get up, right? So, anyways, sometimes we have to be dramatic when we're letting go of a bad habit or something we really enjoy or feel stuck in. But when it comes time for action, you must always, always aim low, right? It's a weird term. Aim low phrase. I first read the phrase in 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and it sounds miserable, but the truth is it's actually like an ingenious statement. A lot of people think that aiming low is bad, but you see, when you aim low, it's still aiming for a place that is better than where you stand currently. It just means you aim low because oftentimes when we start at square one, our ambitions can really drain us and we may expect way more than we are capable of. This is a very dangerous when you're trying to fix something as complex as a habit or something we have a hard time letting go of. We need to be very, very honest with ourselves about this too. Otherwise, burnout is easily reachable. Aim low because what you aim at determines what you see. So that was kind of a long answer, but I'm painfully going to make myself kind of move on here and get to the next question. I love going in depth with this kind of stuff, but maybe we'll do a part 2, or maybe if you guys have more specific questions to anything I've said, feel free. Absolutely. I'd love to cover that. But we do have 2 more questions, and that's kind of going to be the bulk of the episode. So the next question is from, and again, please don't hate me for this, but the name is Carissa, and the Instagram is car.risa.20. So her question was words of encouragement and advice for growing mentally. So it's kind of a request, but also a question. And in parentheses, she put, I love your podcast. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is an awesome question, or request in this case. Now, I do recall we had a brief conversation on Instagram about you starting your own mental health and positivity page. I was just curious how that's going. Obviously, you can't answer that right now, but feel free to update us on how that's going. I'm really curious. I know you asked for some advice on it, and yeah, I'd love to hear how that's going. But anyways, so some encouragement and advice. Seems like a really simple one, right? 'Cause, we're positive outlook, but it's kind of difficult, right? I personally believe that everyone is in such a different place. Not all of the words of encouragement or advice are going to hit the same for everybody. And so maybe I'll try to keep myself down to like 2 or 3 suggestions, to just some of my favorites. I don't want to say my absolute favorites, but definitely up there. Okay. So number 1 is actually from 12 Rules for Life. If you can't tell, I just read the book. But the rule is set your house in order before you criticize the world. This is rule number 6 in the book, and it reminds me of episode 4 from our season 1 on the show. But I think reading this rule hit me way harder. So if you guys remember, Gabe actually discussed the positive effects of having a clean room. But Dr. Peterson, that man reduced my whole existence to that of my dirty room. And that is quite a humbling experience. I've had a clean room ever since. Ever since I read that rule. I will not lie, it's not clean right now. It's been a crazy week, and that's an excuse. Yes, of course. But ever since then, it has been 90% of the time clean. And that's a big deal for me because I'll be honest, I've never always been the cleanest person. But yeah, so, you're asking, okay, how do I grow mentally? And I tell you, clean your room, right? Does that seem silly? Yeah, well, maybe a little bit. But a lot of us have very messy rooms. In fact, I was looking up at some statistics, and 4 in 5 Americans claim that they have one room that is impossible to keep clean. That's from studyfinds.org. This is nuts. 4 in 5 Americans. What is the big deal, you might ask, Caleb? I want to know what will help me grow. Did you really just say clean my room? Yes, I did. How can we build up something bigger than ourselves? How can we think we are such mighty beings when we can't keep our rooms clean? You see, it can be very humbling when someone tells you you are your weakest point. And in this instance, it was my dirty room. I would go to bed and I'd just go to bed, messy room, whatever. But when someone points out that you can't do something as simple as keeping your little room or big room in order, it kind of hits you, right? So, yeah, like, why should I be a good pilot and keep cranking out podcast episodes if I can't even keep my room clean? You know what I mean? So, yeah. And again, as Gabe said, a clean room is a clean mind, right? So why not? You might as well. It's crazy, the benefits. I mean, I did this 3 weeks in a row, and there was just this undescribable stress that was lifted. So my first advice is put your house in order before you criticize the world. Not my advice, but advice that I've just recently read. And there's more to it than just cleaning your room, but the idea is, take care of yourself, because we all have this idea that if we were in certain situations, like, we'd do things differently. And that's kind of a dangerous way to think if you can't keep your room clean. So I think that's interesting. You guys should hold on to that one. And I challenge you to clean your room every day this week and tell me if it's a better week than last week. I dare you. Yeah, double dog, actually. So the next biggest advice for growing mentally is to be graceful with yourself. Some days are going to feel like one step forward and 10 steps backward, but that is just how it goes. That is just how it goes. It is important to remember that when you are on the road to bettering yourself, that we are not perfect, right? It is not a straight road. There's turns, and you end up looping back and getting lost once in a while. That's just how it goes. Setbacks occur at all times, and we need to try and treat ourselves as though we are someone that we care about. So I guess this is kind of a two-parter. But if you were teaching a baby to walk and the baby falls, are you going to yell at it? Are you going to call it dumb? Are you going to think that it's not good enough? Or no, I hope not. You shouldn't, right? If you're doing that, that's, forget these steps. Focus on that first. But don't be yelling at babies, and don't do that to yourself. Don't. When I first started flying here at school, I actually learned one of the hardest parts to get right is landing the plane. Smooth landings are very hard to get right. And some lessons, we stayed right by the runway. They call it traffic pattern. And we just landed 10 times in a row. And there's a specific lesson I can think of where almost every single landing was sloppy, or I hit the ground too hard and I would just get very upset. Like, it was frustrating. And some days it would ruin the entire rest of the day because I couldn't get over the fact that I want to be a pilot, but I can't land a plane. I mean, that's pretty important if you're going to be flying people around to be able to get them back on the ground, right? Isn't that like most of the job? I would say so. And smooth landings are just really hard sometimes. And the thing is, you have to learn to be patient with yourself. Sometimes we take on these tasks that are just near impossible for our skill level or knowledge. And I can personally get very overcritical of myself. Even now, I fudge my landings once in a while, but most of the time it is smooth like butter. And it's important to keep in mind the amount of work and the repetitions it took to get you there, because it's quite the humbling experience when every landing you come bouncing and you fly with the CFI in the right seat, and there's just you and him. So no one else messed up the landing. It's just you. And I think that was probably my CFI's biggest, most repeating message, was to just forgive yourself, like, relax. It's just, a lot of us are doing things that we've never done before. And it's hard to know how difficult the things we are doing when we've never done it before. Some of us just assume that, okay, well, this is something that, or you hear about other people like, oh, well, I've been landing good since I first stepped in a plane. Well, that's okay. Good for you. But I was not. And that's okay too, because now I am. It just takes that patience. You have to be able to be graceful with yourself. All right. And then the last one that I really enjoy is, actually, I don't think anyone enjoys this. Maybe. I don't know. Be honest. It's okay to not be okay. Acceptance of where you are in life is not the same thing as giving up. Let me say that one more time. Acceptance of where you are in life is not the same as giving up. A lot of people believe that we should simply accept where we are in life, and they often confuse this for accepting who we are. These are two very, very different things. I can accept that I'm imperfect, and I can accept that my physique isn't where I want it to be, or I can accept where I'm currently at, but it should be encouraging that I don't have to stay here, right? I mean, if honesty is a problem, things always fall apart very quickly. When you tell a lie and you get away with it, something much deeper happens. Your brain kind of learns that it's okay to tell this lie. And the more lies you tell, the more things start to slowly build up. Have you ever lied to yourself and said, "Hey, I'm going to clean my room tomorrow"? I know I sure have. I do it all the time. I'm working on it, but I still do it all the time. How often do you clean it tomorrow? Personally, if I said it once, I knew it was coming again. And this lie to calm myself about my messy room would grow until my room is just a disaster. And I had to deal with it. And these problems don't go away just because you rationalize yourself out of dealing with it at that moment. And that is important, because I know personally that it's so easy to tell yourself that if you just lie and get yourself out of this, it's going to go away. But it always comes back, always. And it's painful. It's brutal. It always happens at the worst moment too. Let me tell you. um, so the thing is here is, if you have any lies you are currently telling yourself, try to look into why. Sometimes it can be because you had a genuinely exhausting day, right? Sometimes you need that break. Don't clean your room. Let yourself rest, right? But a lot of times the real reasons for lying can be much deeper than that. And that is when you must be graceful, right? You have to understand you are not the first person to tell a lie. That doesn't mean it's okay to continue. But when you are honest, it's imperative to just understand things stay much more simple, right? I mean, have you guys ever watched that Brain Games show that used to be on? They did an episode on how your brain is wired and how it acts when you're telling a lie versus the truth. And it basically, they had like this skit, and it was this guy running around, and the truth was this beeline right to the answer. The lie, this dude's running back and forth across the room to pick up a book, and the book it was supposed to like simulate the the brain thinking of things to tell, because you have to fill in this lie. You're fabricating something, so your brain has to put in that work, and it's terrible. So stay honest about where you are on your progress. It can be tempting to really exaggerate your progress to others, but that also just takes away from what you've truly accomplished. If you've just done something, right? Like let's say, for example, we just hit 10,000 subscribers. If I'm going around telling everyone, "Yo, we hit 20,000 subscribers," that takes away from those 10,000 subscribers that we got to listen to our show, right? That completely takes away from the fact that we have 10,000 people listening. Now we don't. We have like 1,300 subscribers. But the point is, don't discourage yourself in that way. Don't let yourself fall victim to just easily lying, because sometimes it's easy. And another challenge, this episode might be full of challenges at this point. Try to observe yourself and what you say just every day. Just sit back and kind of listen to yourself and see what you're saying. I was shocked at how many little lies and exaggerations and manipulations of the truth and rationalizations that I would have just in a day-to-day basis. Try to observe it, and it might shock you at how much you lie. Maybe not, but it was crazy to me. Insane. Yeah, so that kind of answers that question. Great questions, by the way. There's only one more that I'm going to go over, and that'll pretty much be the episode. But the last question was brought to you, again, I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so please correct me. But the Instagram account is _Churba_. And I really like this question. It was really difficult, and we'll get to why. But the question is, what are the main reasons why people sometimes give up on their dreams? The reason this question is so difficult is because it can vary different person to different person so much. I mean, so much. So what I did was I researched the opposite question, right? Well, not the opposite question. I researched how many people actually accomplish their dreams. And it was kind of a hard one to pull. So the survey that I found is based off of dream jobs. But yeah, let's see what we found here. So according to a survey from surveyfinds.org, a group of 2,000 Americans were interviewed, and about 43% of people have claimed to be working their childhood dream jobs. 19% have worked in the same field as their dream jobs. This was actually quite a shocking number. I mean, over 50% of people have at least worked in the field of their dream jobs. Now, I'm not saying this is the same thing as a dream, but I was curious what the numbers would find. And that's kind of crazy. But I think it's important to understand that one, these 2,000 people they hardly represent all of America. You know, if there's so many factors when it comes to surveys, and I didn't look at the surveying methods because I learned about those last year. I took probability and stats. I didn't really look at those numbers, but I can just tell, considering it was done in New York State, that it's not going to represent all of America. But you know, for fun, let's just say it is, right? Let's just say that this 43% is a hard number. That still leaves us, if you include the 19%, that still leaves us with 38% of the whole country who have never even worked in the same field as their dream job. This number comes out to be, as of 2023, 127.8 million people. I had a hard time finding any stats on reasons why people give up on their dreams, but I just thought I'd kind of throw in some numbers, and now I'll answer what I think are a few big ones for why people give up on their dreams. So the first one is the most commonly read and talked about is typically fear. Personally, I've heard it's the fear of success. Some believe it to be the fear of failure, and others say it is the fear of judgment. I really think that all of these are very valid fears, and many fall to these fears. Almost everyone does, at least at one point, right? So let's kind of break it down. So the fear of success is typically when you aren't sure if you're personally meant to be successful. Maybe you only see your faults and doubt if you're worthy. Sometimes that spotlight can be just as terrifying as the failure itself. When all eyes are on you, the pressure is turned up and many crumble. I think the core reason for the fear of success and the fear of failure are kind of the same oftentimes. So what is the fear of failure? The fear of failure is when you hate failure so much, you have this realization that if you avoid the things you fail at, you don't feel that fail. So before explaining what I mean by these fears resulting from the same problem, let me kind of jump over to the fear of judgment. So many of us think like what we think based on many factors, from where we grew up to who influenced us. It is impossible to slap one reason as to why we care what people think. But one major reason is that it is much easier to tear other buildings down than to actually build up your building taller than anyone else. And obviously this is an analogy. I'm not out here building buildings or trying to tear them down for that matter. But the point is, people kind of have this mindset that if I can't be good at this, no one can. And if you think you can be better, it's easier if I tell you why you can't be better than for me to assess my own failings and try to be better. So the other problem with that is when you're new to something and have no idea what you're doing, you're even more influenceable to those in that field. So by filling you with this doubt, your peers are setting you up for the seemingly inescapable failure. So you could even throw that fear into the same group as the other two. It's a result of not believing in yourself. Now, again, there could be 1,000,001 reasons why you fear something. And I'm simply trying to give the best advice I can to a rather general question. The thing is about fear can keep us alive, but it can also hold us back, right? There's always comes a point where you have to take a leap. Always. A leap into the unknown, a leap into chaos. We must remember some fundamental things when it is time to step foot in this mysterious chaos. One is that you deserve it. If you have been honest and hardworking, if you have put the time in, why not believe in yourself? Maybe ask yourself honestly, have you done enough? Actually analyze, do you know? Is there a reason that this fear of failure or of success keeps creeping in, right? If you've been kind of lying to yourself and not doing the work, maybe that's secretly telling you that you're not worthy because you're not. That's kind of a tough thing to hear and a tough thing to have to tell yourself. But at least if that is the truth and you can come to terms with that, at least now you know how to fix that, right? That is huge, right? Now Now you know how to fix it. So let's say you have put the work in, but you still fear that failure. There's no better and no worse feeling than failure. Yes, I did mean to say better. See, the reason failure is like nothing else is because it makes you just feel horrible. Horrible. I once wrote in a mental training class I took about what the feeling of failure felt like to me. I was a little bit dramatic, but I just lost a wrestling match, and I'd wrote that it was like being bit by a poisonous snake. The longer it sunk in that I lost, the worse the feeling got. Right? A little dramatic, yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it was pretty dramatic. but but there's something so strong about this feeling, and you don't have to accept it. Use that bitter sting, use that reason to push yourself harder, to learn more. Use it to not never lose again, but to never lose the same way. Right? We're always going to fail. We're always going to lose at something. Just don't lose the same way. Right? That's kind of where grace comes in too. But let's keep moving. So let's say you put in the work, you understand the failure is just the best possible lesson because it puts everything on the line, and you learn to kind of love that feeling of being someone between the failure and greatness. What about what Jimmy said right before it's time to beg to start? What about what Jimmy said, right? Or Johnny or the entire class? They said it was impossible to pass this exam. It was not going to happen. But let me ask you this. Did they put the same work in as you? You don't know. I don't know. And if you've learned to use failure as a superpower, who cares? If you've learned to better yourself after a failure and work like a dog and just accept that you do deserve to pass this exam, then what fear is left of the judgment? Sometimes it can be much more extreme when that judgment comes from someone close to you, and there's different ways to deal with that. Maybe you have to set up a conversation with them. Maybe you kind of have to tune them out a little bit, and that's a far more difficult situation. But the thing is, there aren't many, if any, limitations to humans. So why not test yours? See what I did there? Test exam. Yeah. Okay. The second one was the second one that I kind of came up with is that oftentimes the dream is simply not sustainable. For a dream to be sustainable, it must be both realistic and something that is worth every bit of suffering that your journey takes you on. We often pick a dream early, and this can be difficult. I mean, it's nearly impossible to know what you dreamed of accomplishing at 7 is the same thing you accomplished that you dreamed to accomplish at 70, right? I mean, a lot can happen in those 63 years. So it's important to have this full realization of what your dream is and why. As I mentioned earlier, I had some serious doubts about the podcast for the first time since we started it. I became obsessed with looking at numbers and watch time and views and listens and comparing it to our earlier episodes, and I just wanted more. I lost sight briefly of the very reason that I wanted to start this podcast. And many of our supporters, many of you guys actually reminded me why I wanted to do this. See, when you realize that your focus is in the wrong place, that living the life of a successful content creator becomes more apparent to you than the people you've touched, it's time to have a little self-confidence. What is making this become more true? Is it because I didn't want to wake up every morning and go to work? Was it anything good? Was there a good reason for it? Well, it wasn't then. Maybe it's the wrong dream, right? Maybe it's not the right dream if you don't have a good reason why. Maybe it's just something you thought you wanted, right? So after taking a lot of time to consider this, I started kind of seeing more and more through social media and YouTube how many people are so capable of transcending where they are, of bettering themselves and becoming more aware of the world. I kind of felt my original mission was correct, and it was amazing. I kind of realigned, everything clicked back, and here I am. So not only does the dream have to be sustainable, but you have to have a good reason for it. I mean, it has to be attainable for the right reasons, or things go wrong very quickly. You'll always be upset if that's kind of off center. So yeah, I mean, I was watching an interview, and this guy was saying that, some people's dreams is to go kick up and drink margaritas on the beach. It's like, okay, well, how long are you going to do that before it's not going to work? Um, yeah, I've had some weird dreams out there. Like I wanted to be an actor. I guess it's not that weird, but like why? Why? Just so I didn't have to work, right? That's not very sustainable. That's not going to help me through all the suffering. Um, and that kind of leads us right into kind of my last answer for the questions altogether, but for this specifically one, why do people give up on their dream? The last answer I currently have is that some people never acquire the tools to turn a dream into an action plan. Sort of a two-parter answer. The first is never acquiring the tools. Now more than ever, there are so many resources for these tools and so many ways to access them. If you don't find a library, I mean, if you're listening to this, I mean, you have our podcast. You probably have access to other podcasts and books and ebooks and whatever. There's a million and one things out there. You just got to find kind of what works best for you. And that's super important, right? Another thing too is like dusty old books, they have wisdom in them. They might not be the most prevalent. Maybe there's some updating that needs to happen, but don't reinvent the wheel every time you go to tackle a new challenge. Use some of that wisdom. I've finally started reading again. It's really hard to do in college. I'm so happy that I'm not reading. I got a book membership at this place here in Traverse, and about once a month I go buy a new book. So I've been reading about a book a month on top of all my studies, and it's amazing. I'm so excited to just read more and more. So don't give up on reading. But anyways, let's kind of keep it moving here. So secondly is kind of the action plan aspect. Gabe and I have an episode, so I won't go too deep on it, but a dream is just a dream. How can you make something in your head become a reality? By planning with goals. You have to get it onto paper. That is typically the most common way to get it from here into the real world. Go watch episode 3 of our second season. It's called Goals. Oh, sorry. It's episode 3 of our first season. It's called Goals. And watch Dream Catching and Goal Setting episode 13. I don't remember what the actual name of the episode is, but it's season 2, episode 13. One of my favorite episodes we've recorded, actually. So I won't go too in depth here, but one of the hardest things to do is turning a dream into a reality. And that is one reason so many of us give up. Maybe they hear it as difficult, and because they lack the mental tools, they give up. That is why you hear motivational speakers say the same thing in different ways many times. No one wants to hear the cliche, never give up. But that is the only statement that it truly takes. Every day you tell yourself to never give up right in the mirror, and that is the first step. A lot of times, and I've been laughed at for this, but people laugh at the silly advice, right? Not giving up is one of the most important things to add to your tool set. Fundamentally, it applies to everything. By not giving up, it won't teach you how to build a house, right? But if you don't ever give up trying to learn the process, it's only a matter of time before you look back and you've built the entire town around you. Overall, it's really difficult to place any one reason why people give up on a dream. Sometimes it's just time to let go, and then that's when you kind of go back at the process mentioned earlier in the episode. Make it dramatic. Ask yourself, is this really bettering you? And slowly get on the work there. But sometimes you simply have to take a dream to the next step. That's all it takes. So I kind of hope that satisfies your question. Those were the most 3 common ones. And again, psychologically, it's really difficult. There could be a million factors, but I feel like these are typically the most common reasons. I found a lot of articles, and they just had that repeating theme, but there wasn't any hard numbers, and so I didn't have any stats for this answer. But I would say personally, those are things I've related to as well. And again, circumstantially, it could be different. And that's why, like, if you guys ever want more personable advice, our DMs on Instagram are always open, always available. If we can't help, we'll try to point you to someone that can. But it's so fun taking requests on topics, and there are some that we still have to do. We had a couple that were requested before we kind of had the 2 month, or I guess I was over 3 months, wasn't it? Wow, hiatus. But we're back to the grind. I'm not sure if it's gonna be weekly or bi-weekly episodes, but yeah, for now I thought it would be a good episode, starting small and aiming low. This is my first solo episode, and I'm currently working on some future collabs that should be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to kind of reach out to some people in this area and kind of talk to some Traverse City people. If anyone doesn't know, Gabe and I are from Gaylord, which is like an hour away, really small town. Traverse City's a little bigger. I think it's about 5 times the size of Gaylord. And I know there's a lot of cool people here. So I'm really looking forward to using this kind of little studio room and being able to get some more people on the show. But yeah, thank you guys for asking those amazing questions. I know, so full transparency again, I actually did script this. I was really, really worried about being by myself. And I wasn't sure if I could keep it entertaining if I just had notes like Gabe and I usually do. We'll just write something to kind of jog the discussion. But there's no one to talk to in this room right now. So it's a little different, right? I'm sure you guys could tell a little bit. I was reading off the script there, here and there. Usually it's pretty obvious when I go off script because it's a little less formatted. But I wrote all of this. I was up really late last night cranking this out. I was so excited, and it was so difficult to stop writing because there comes a time when you're just cranking out the answer, and then you say something and you want to go in depth on what that means, and that's why I think honestly those questions could be episodes. Those questions have episodes that hit on them. Sorry, but yeah. So I really hope that answered your questions. Don't ever stop with those questions, ever. I love answering them. But yeah, if you guys want a deeper dive, maybe we can expand on them. You know, we have some episodes that touch on these topics, but it can always go deeper, and that is what I love. There's not a single topic that you can possibly know everything on. And I think that's really important, kind of like a disclaimer, if you will. Sorry, 1 second. I have to actually fill out an aircraft request form. I did not realize it was 2 o'clock. So, yeah, I'm actually about to take my girlfriend up for a flight today. Just having her sit in the back seat. Really excited. I know, yeah, usually you have to be right on time with these things. So I really apologize. I know this is edited. Maybe we'll cut it out. Maybe I'll leave it in. Yeah, this is not working. So this is, oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry guys. 1 second. But it's so good to be back. It really is. I also didn't know how long this episode would be. So I'm totally cool with doing slightly longer formatted episodes. Just let me know what you guys think. Leave honest reviews. DM us. Gonna be dropping, today is Monday. Well, the day of recording is actually Friday. So Good Friday. So I hope everyone had a really happy Easter. Let me not do my outro while I'm filling this out. I apologize, guys. 1 second. Okay, we just gotta submit that. Perfect. Okay, a minute late. Oh well. Yeah. So we're back. We're ready to crank out some episodes for you guys, and I'm really excited to kind of see where this takes us. So thank you guys for joining our journey towards a more positive outlook. Remember that you can be a force of good in the world, so keep shining your light and make a difference. Until next time, happy Monday.